Hey guys, thanks for joining me today. Ross Marcagiani at revowell.com. We have another great topic today. We're going to dive into where to start with rebuilding our health. Having a lot of things thrown at us, a lot of topics and fads and concepts thrown at us, we get overwhelmed. We're not really sure where to start, so we don't go anywhere. We just stay where we are. So we're going to dive into how to get you moving in the right direction and really how to build that health by looking into eating, toxins to avoid, and looking at our exercise. So I hope you're ready to learn and put on your learning cap. Let's dive in. So first we're going to talk about eating. So we want to make sure we're eating clean foods and that we're taking in good nutrients. If we're not getting our macros, micros, minerals, and vitamins from our food, that we're taking them through supplementation. So it's really important that before we address like adrenal issues, detoxification pathways, metabolic buildup, or other issues with the gut, that we want to make sure we build a good foundation. So we don't want to start building that house on a crummy foundation and have that house just collapse in. So we want to make sure we start off at a good point and that we don't jump the gun, and we make sure that we're really starting from a good foundation. A lot of the issues that people run into is they don't create that lifestyle and they try to just fix the gut, go right into the fix the gut, go right into fix the adrenals, and then they go back to that same lifestyle and then they're just back to square one. So really important that we're building that foundation so that we can really catapult and keep that health going instead of the yo-yo diet or the yo-yo health lifestyle. So really important to start with, is a ketogenic diet. It may vary from people to people depending on the body type, build, and the hormone production. But I find that most people are really going to thrive off this ketogenic diet. So the whole purpose behind a ketogenic diet is that we limit our carbohydrate intake. So this is going to be roughly 20 to 30 grams a day of carbohydrates. Depending on your exercise, this can vary. I sometimes will get up to maybe 40, 50, even 60 grams per day of carbohydrate if I'm exercising a lot and still be in ketosis. We'll also have this is mainly going to be a high fat content diet. So we're going to have our fat containing mainly of 60 to 70% of our diet throughout the day will be in fat. And then the other 30 to 40% will be in proteins. So you heard me talk about the word ketosis. So how do we know we're in ketosis? I usually will take a glucose meter, get a ketone strip, and then you can take the measurement of the ketones in the blood, and you want to see a 0.6 millimole or higher of ketones in the blood, meaning that we're running in ketosis. So really important that we are making a healthy choice on what we're eating in this diet, making sure that we're avoiding the refined carbs and we're staying away from carbs, and we're keeping our insulin level nice and steady. So basically, the reason why this diet is so helpful is because we're not consuming a ton of carbohydrates, and that causes the blood sugar to stay nice and level like I just spoke of. So we're not going to be going to hypoglycemia or not getting in hyperglycemia. The blood's not going to jump up and down. The blood level is going to stay nice and steady, which is good and is what we want. And also, this diet's going to cause a decreased secretion of cortisol and T3. So cortisol is a catabolic hormone. That means it breaks down the body. So if we're secreting less cortisol, we're not going to be breaking down the body as much, which is a plus. And then we're going to secrete less T3, which is triiodothyronine, which is produced by the thyroid. So this is going to cause to decrease our metabolic rate. So that's good because we're not going to have to eat nearly as much to be satiated. We're going to have, a nice level sensation of hunger. We're not going to be over hungry, and we're not going to over consume food because our resting metabolic rate is nice and low, which is really a positive and a benefit. Also, when we produce exhaust, So a car produces exhaust, correct? And when that exhaust comes out, if you have high levels of that exhaust, it can be harmful to a person. Same thing when we move, we exercise, we have an exhaust. And that's the form of oxidative reaction species and free radicals. So this is going to produce a cleaner exhaust, so to speak, that we're not building up these harmful products in oxidative reaction species and free radicals that can damage the tissue. So that's another really good positive benefit from a ketogenic diet. Next, we'll jump into the Paleo or Paleo AIP diet, and that stands for autoimmune protocol. So very similar to the ketogenic diet. Macros might be shifted around, so our fat to protein content might be a little bit different, but mainly consisting of that low carbohydrate diet. So because when we break down carbohydrates in its simplest form, it turns into glucose. And then glucose is what we use as energy. So ketones will be another source of energy. So the body can use glucose, fat, and ketones for energy. And in this ketogenic and also paleo diet, what we'll do is we'll tap into our adipose storage, and we can actually take the stored energy in our adipose and use that form. So what will happen is called fatty acid oxidation. So we'll take the glycerol, which is the storage form of energy in the fat, and we'll oxidize the glycerol, and then we'll use the fatty acids, which is the smallest component that come from that glycerol, and that can be delivered to the liver, where the liver will now produce ketones, which will be our energy for our muscles, for our cardiac tissue, for our brain, and other various tissues. Because fatty acids can't cross the blood-brain barrier. Only glucose and only ketones can cross the blood-brain barrier to feed the brain, essentially. So that's a really important component. I like to consider this as, think about fatty acids or glycerol as like a big tree branch, and it's very great source of energy. It burns really well, but it's so big it's hard to break down and use up. So if we throw that big tree branch into a wood chipper, now we have these small fine pieces of wood, which would be our ketones, which we can use for energy. So that's the real premise and the concept behind that, and we can tap into our adipose tissue more easily instead of using glucose as our primary fuel. And then back to the Paleo AIP diet, the autoimmune protocol. So this may be for patients that have tried certain diets and have struggled and have found some issues, is because they might be having an autoimmune reaction, or they might be causing eating a food that is inflaming their gut. They might be taking a food in that causes an allergic reaction. And what this will do is it will cause an allergic reaction, and it will alarm the immune system, our defense system, that something's foreign, something's not right here. We need to attack and destroy this food particle. And then the gut becomes inflamed, and we get that abdominal distress, we get distension, we get abdominal pain, we get nausea, diarrhea, irritable bowel-like syndrome. So that's really important that we are addressing that issue if those are some common signs and symptoms for you. So making sure that we are staying away from nuts, beans, dairy, grains, staying away from vegetable oils, alcohol, making sure we're having we're containing a diet that is high in clean organic meats, dairy, other poultry, good clean vegetables, good clean fruit, making sure we're having good high fat sources such as our coconut oil, our olive oil, our ghee, lard, bacon fat. These are all really good clean sources of fat. And again, making sure we're having clean sources, our uncured bacon, getting bacon fat, various things like that. We're staying away from nitrates. And then also included in this AIP diet, you'll see words associated such as nightshades and FODMAPs. So we'll talk about FODMAPs real quickly. FODMAPs are going to stand for our fermented, oligosaccharide, disaccharide, monosaccharide, and polyols. So basically what happens here is, again, we ingest something and our bacteria break down the food, and when the bacteria break down the food, it produces fermented food particles. And again, this triggers the immune system saying, hey, something's not right, we have to fight and defend the body. And again, it creates inflammation and causes issue in the gut, leading to leaky gut, leading to SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, maybe causing parasites and other issues like that. So foods that that might be FODMAP related is our oligosaccharides. The O will be our fructans. So staying away from artichokes, staying away from leeks, staying away from onions and garlic. That could be related to the oligosaccharides. Or the galacto-oligosaccharides, staying away from the legumes and the beans. Then our disaccharides, which will be our lactose, staying away from our dairy products. Then the M, our monosaccharides. That's going to be our fructose. So fructose, some people say fructose is good because it's fiber content, and the fructose is going to be our fruit sugar. So our sugar from the fruit. We want to make sure we just monitor it and that we have an idea of how much we're taking in. Making sure that we're not over consuming fructose. As far as sugar, I believe the American Heart Association says that no more than 37.5 grams a day of sugar shows adverse or effects that you can adverse heart conditions or heart-related issues. So I try to make sure that I'm at least under 37 grams a day of sugar content and making sure I'm on top of my fructose. So again, making sure, we'll talk about that in a little bit. So staying away from honey, staying away from high fructose fruits, honey, apple, pears, and such. And then we'll do our polyols. So this is going to be like our mannitol, maltol, and our formulated sugars, essentially, making sure we're staying away from that. Next, under this Paleo IEP is going to be our nightshades. So this is going to come from the Silenciae plant, and this will foods are typically associated with this is the acronym TPEP, TPEP. So our tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, and potatoes we want to stay away from. Those are going to be nightshade related foods, and again, this will trigger an immune response. We have a food allergen related to these foods, and we trigger an immune response, and the gut attacks the immune system attacks the gut and creates this inflamed state. So what we would do, we place someone on this diet and basically continue a modified elimination diet. So we'll figure out, what are we allergic to? What are we sensitive to? What's causing this immune response? So we'll have them on the diet for 3 weeks, and then after those 3 weeks, we'll slowly start adding in a food one at a time and figuring out what they can have. So after 3 weeks, we'll add a food. We'll let 48 hours go by, so 2 days go by, being really aware of how that food is interacting with you, and if you're sensitive to it. If there's not, if you're fine, there's nothing reactive about it, then we add another food in, go another 48 hours, and then so on and so on. So that's how we would monitor that. And I really don't like using the diet so much. It should be a lifestyle. That's why we're trying to do this modified elimination, to add foods back in, just to see what we can live on and have in our lifestyle. So we talked about nightshade, we talked about FODMAPs. Now we're going to talk about just being mindful about eating. So making sure that we're in an environment that's not super stressful, that we're not activating our sympathetic while we're eating. So we're activating that parasympathetic and we can rest and digest. Making sure that we're with people that we want to enjoy, not being stimulated or not multitasking. Making sure we can be mindful of what we're eating, be conscious of what's on our plate. Making sure that we are starting our digestive system with our eyes and our sense as well as our smell, triggering that digestive system. Making sure that we are drinking our food and swallowing our liquids. So drinking our solids, swallowing chewing our liquids, excuse me. Let me say that again. Drinking our solids and chewing our liquids. So making sure, basically what that means is that when we are chewing food, that we're making sure we're conscious, getting multiple chewing bites in before we swallow the food, at least 20 to 30 bites every time you get a food in your mouth. So we're really activating our salivary amylase and we're triggering the digestive system. And by the time the bolus gets into our stomach, it's just that much easier for the food to be completely digested. Really important that we're being mindful of that. And then eating clean, avoiding fructose, and avoiding genetically modified foods. So GMOs, that genetically modified organisms. So GMOs are associated with glyphosate. Glyphosate is found in Roundup. And the reason why they use glyphosate in Roundup is because this is a molecule that when it is in the soil, it takes all the nutrients out of the soil and takes it away from that plant and basically kills the plant. And that will do the same thing in the body. As we eat GMO foods, we have glyphosate that's in our blood, and this takes nutrients that should be delivered to other tissues, and it takes the nutrients and attaches it to that glyphosate molecule. So now we can't deliver nutrients to the tissues that need, and this glyphosate molecule will hold on to these nutrients, and we can never excrete or get rid of this glyphosate. It just circulates in our blood. So we really want to make sure we stay away from that. Making sure, again, we're being aware of our fructose intake. So fructose is going to be directly metabolized through the liver. So a lot of glucose can be broken down in the stomach and doesn't really have too much of an effect on the liver. Fructose needs to be directly delivered to the liver in order to be broken down. Also, it can interfere with the breakdown of glucose, and it will interfere in the liver, the storage form, from taking glucose to its storage form of glycogen. So fructose will cause basically a giant traffic jam in that liver. And also it'll affect the insulin sensitivity of our muscles. So basically meaning that in order to get our muscles to have a response to insulin, we need to have more insulin in our blood for it to trigger a response, which isn't a good, because then it will create our fluctuation of hypoglycemic or hyperglycemic going up. So we want that, remember, that even level of blood sugar. And then again, eating clean, making sure we're staying away from harmful foods, staying away from GMOs, making sure we're eating clean organic food, making sure that we're having a diet that's going to be avoiding gluten. Gluten, that's its own topic on its own that we'll get into. But making sure gluten, the biggest thing, quick topic on that, is that when we break down gluten into its simplest molecule, the gliadin molecule, can be very irritating to the gut and again trigger that immune response. So staying away from that. And what I don't really track my food too much, but if you're someone who really wants to track your food, make sure without taking the blood glucose meter that you're in ketosis and that you're getting the correct amount of fats, proteins, and carbs. MyFitnessPal is a great app that you could use to track that. Next, we're going to go into toxins. So real quick, these are things just to avoid and to be aware of, and you can really clean up your life and keep these out and wreaking havoc on your body. So the first one is BPA, bisphenol A. Real quick, this is a real popular one that's in plastics that creates plastics to be shatterproof. But we need to realize just not bisphenol A are in these plastics. There's hundreds of other phenols that are out there that we need to be aware of. But this is one that really takes the cake or has the spotlight on. The bisphenol A can mimic estrogens, so it can really cause a lot of estrogen dominance in the body, which is not a good thing. And then also, real quick, how bisphenol A became so popular is a laboratory was culturing cancer cells, and one day they ran out of the glass petri dishes, so they ended up using these plastic petri dishes, and they let the cancer cells culture, and they went back to evaluate the cancer cells, and they noticed that the cancer cells exponentially developed, and that they significantly increased their spread of development. And they found that the bisphenol A helped promote these cancer proliferation. So staying away from BPA is very beneficial, excuse me, and has been shown to cause cancer. Also, another real quick thing with BPA that kind of really just drives me nuts is that I'll see people sometimes, they'll take their plastic Tupperware and they throw it into the microwave for like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and they have all this, this flimsy, they're holding on to this flimsy plastic now that's all warm and heated, and it will cause these phenols to leach into your food, and now you're eating these phenols and directly digesting them. So stay away from that. If you need to absolutely heat up your food, use Pyrex or some type of glass where you're not going to get that leaching. Next, we have atrazine. So atrazine is going to be used in our pesticides. They're going to be used in corn. So when we feed our livestock, the livestock is going to get this atrazine. And then this causes a lot, is associated with reproductive issues. Our next one is dioxin. Our dioxin is found in soil, and it can be found in animal foods. So this can really affect our sperm count production, can be linked to breast cancer, mental and reproductive issues. Next one is PCB. So this is going to be our polychlorinated biphenol. And our polychlorinated biphenol is associated with like paints, foams, other household products. So you just want to be aware of that. And that's going to be associated and linked to breast cancer, immune and endocrine disorders. Next one is our PFOA, which is going to be perfluoroketonic acid. Perfluoroketonic acid is going to be in our cooked pans. A lot of time it's associated with our Teflon or our non-stick pans, and this can cause an increase in cardiovascular disease. The next one is our DDT. So this is a toxin if there is high mosquito area and they have to do a ton of spraying. This can be found in the pesticides and the spraying that they're using. And the DDT has shown to have affect liver function and nervous system issues. Next one is our PBDE, and this is going to be our polybrominated diphenyl ether. And this is going to be in our couches, our pillows, beds, and also shown to be on like dust that collects on the floor. So making sure we're being aware of that. That's going to cause brain, thyroid, and reproductive issues as well. Next one we're going to talk about is paraben. So paraben, this is going to be in our preservatives, cosmetics, lotions, and this is going to mimic, again, estrogen, so estrogen dominance, and cause breast cancer issues as well. Then we have our perchlorate. Our perchlorate is going to be in our water. So really important that we're having a clean source of water, that we're using filters, and that we're making sure we have a good source of water, because we don't want to be taking in this perchlorate. This is going to be associated with thyroid and mitochondrial dysfunction. And then we have our triclosan. Our triclosan is going to be in our antibacterial soaps and other cleaning products. This is going to decrease thyroid function and hormone function. And the last one we have is our EMF, our electromagnetic frequency. So making sure that we aren't going to bed with the phone under our pillow, making sure we're turning the Wi-Fi off on our phone, making sure we're turning the Wi-Fi off from our router, unplugging that, making sure the phone is about 6 feet from us, that we're not catching those EMFs. And this has been shown to affect testosterone, brain, and thyroid as well. So for this real quick, what I found that's been helpful is I use the Healthy Living app. So anything that I have questions about, I just check it out on my Healthy Living app and make sure that I'm not in the red. I don't want to have any products that are in the red in my household. And then real quick, we'll just go over exercise. So I like to do like a Tabata or a high intensity training, interval training exercise. For those who are very adrenally fatigued, we're going to tell them to hold off and wait till the body is ready to handle that stress. But I like to do an exercise that is short burst, maximal effort duration. So short duration, like maybe a 20, 30 second rep exercise that I have to do maximal effort. And that gives me, about a 1 to 2 minute recovery. So I'm really taxing my body, but allowing my body to recover, not creating bad compensatory patterns, and I'm getting the best bang for my buck in the most time possible. And the big thing here I like to talk about, you should be able to repeat your exercise. So after you're done exercising, whether it may be the half an hour, the 45 minutes, the hour plus, whatever your exercise may be, being able to get done with it and think to yourself, am I able to repeat that exercise? That's a real good barometer on how much you're pushing the body. And then also making sure that we know our age estimated heart rate max, and we're working in a good heart rate max range. So 220 and then minus your age is your age estimated heart rate max. And then I like to go down another 30 from there, making sure I'm just in a good, comfortable heart rate working range, and I'm not stressing my body too much, but I know that I'm still pushing my body and getting an effect from the workout. So that basically covers it. I know we talked about a lot of topics here in detail. If you have any questions, please let me know. We're definitely going to go more into gluten and more into the paleo and ketogenic diet and FODMAPs and nightshades on different videos. But I will definitely be putting some more information on it there on how to follow like a paleo or ketogenic diet and or to follow that modified elimination diet. So just to get you going in the right direction. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please, if you know anyone out there that will benefit from this, please share this video. Because like I always say, we're in this together to become healthier and happier. I hope you have a magnificent day. Thank you for your time.